Flip it open. So E3 is dead. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, it's not officially dead. It's not on paper dead, but there is currently no reason to believe that it is not dead. Throughout the year, we've been hearing about more and more big publishers just saying, we're not going to the show this year. We're not going to 2023. You know, it was the big three. It's Nintendo, it's Microsoft, and then it's Ubisoft, and then it's Tencent, and it's like all of the different big companies that are clearly the lifeblood of a show like this. You know, it's one thing to lose, you know, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, but then just like everybody else following suit, you know? And the more companies were announcing that they weren't coming, I kept wondering, are they just gonna forge ahead anyway? You know, maybe have a disappointing show, a weird show, but like at least something. Are they gonna try to do something? But no, they officially made the announcement. They're just canceling, which is pretty embarrassing. I gotta say, it's pretty embarrassing, you know? Okay, no one's showing up to my party. It's not even worth having a party at this point. It's not even, it's out the window. But it's even more embarrassing hearing like the PR talk and like seeing them kind of pretend like people aren't showing up they've got reasons. You know, there's a lot of different reasons why they're not showing up. Yeah, this is the official quote. "This was a difficult decision because of all the effort we and our partners put toward making this event happen, but we had to do what's right for the industry and what's right for E3. We appreciate and understand that interested companies wouldn't have playable demos ready, and that resourcing challenges made being at E3 this summer an obstacle they couldn't overcome." Yeah, those are not the reasons that the companies aren't coming. The reason is, and the thing that the people running E3 don't want to admit, is that it's just not something they want to do anymore. It's not even worth it. And that right there, yes, there are indeed many reasons why that is true, that it's just not worth doing anymore. You know, one, it's expensive. It's just really expensive to put on a big, huge show and a big theater and to have a huge on-the-floor presence with game demos and all that different stuff. And then two, you know, it's the same thing we've all heard a million times. In this digital age, there's very little reason to get people into physical spaces to play your games. It doesn't make as much sense anymore. And, you know, like speaking with journalists in person, that used to be the way that it like mainly had to be done, you know, back when gaming magazines were like the main way people were getting their news. You had to talk to these people in person and then write it up and they'd print it, but it's just not how things work anymore. And then three, even if they do want to have some kind of like physical presence at a show where people can demo their upcoming game, PAX is right there. There it is. PAX, you got multiple of them. You got a West Coast one, East Coast, you got a bunch of PAXs. So like, there you go. That fills that little need quite nicely. And then four, of course, they can and do just put on their own presentations whenever they want. You know, companies can do like a low budget digital one that they just stream, or they can do a physical one if they really want. You know, it still happens. Microsoft and Sony, if it's like a big enough thing, you know, new console coming out, yeah, they might still get a theater, do that. Like they could if they want, but it doesn't have to be tied to anything. It can just kind of be whenever they want, and they can just kind of stream it. It's not getting broadcast on television. They just put it on the internet and we all watch it. And then if they really do, if they still have that urge to get together with other companies to announce stuff so that there's some kind of, you know, combined hype, there's the Game Awards. And now Summer Game Fest. I give so many props to Jeff Keighley. I swear, when I read the news, when I heard E3 was canceled, I could hear him laughing. I could hear him laughing from just like however many thousands of miles away. He looked at this situation. He knew what was happening even before pandemic and before the first cancellation. Like, he knew what was going on. He knew E3 was growing redundant, just not really necessary anymore. So he created 2 smaller, more condensed, and ultimately cheaper venues for revealing games and stuff. And companies jumped at the chance, you know, because like he made a big show out of it, you know. Game Awards, it really was big. It's got a lot of advertising money behind it. It's a big professional thing. So yeah, the game companies, like, they were all about it. And I know, like, Summer Game Fest, that took a couple years to catch on. The first time it was like kind of maybe a little too spread out or something. People didn't really know what it was. But like, no, I mean, last year it was great. Like, you know, there's that, it goes on for a few weeks, but there's that one presentation, just a few hours, where all these different companies are revealing stuff. It's great. It's just like a nice little mini E3 presentation. It's like you got the Game Awards and you got Summer Game Fest. Perfect. It's quick and easy. It's cheap. It's not a week-long trade show with just, you know, a bunch of different shows in these massive theaters. It's just not needed anymore. It's just not necessary. And he knew that. And he really, really delivered. He created the perfect alternative. And like, there you go. He won. He won. He saw the problem. He fixed it. He wins. E3 was already halfway in the grave, but man, Jeff Keighley really just nailed the final nail in the coffin, you know? And he did it gleefully, and I can't blame him. I can't blame him at all. And now it is just obvious to see that E3 is dead. It is in the grave. And we had these sorts of discussions, you know, a few years ago, the whole, like, is E3 dead kind of thing. You know, it felt like it was really on shaky ground already. We knew that it was growing redundant, but it still wasn't for sure. We wanted to see if they were going to come back and do a physical show and see if they could turn it around somehow, but that has not happened. There's really no getting around it now. E3 as like an IP or whatever you want to call it, you know, that still exists. They could technically try to do something with it, but like, they can't use the pandemic as an excuse anymore. They just can't. Companies didn't show up this year because they didn't want to. Again, there's no reason to believe that they will want to next year. And without the companies, it's over. And you know, it's a little sad, but like, it makes sense. Times change. This was inevitable. Already said all that. You know, E3 didn't adapt, so it died. And you know what? Maybe it couldn't have adapted. Maybe just it as a concept was just not viable anymore. Maybe its time was just up. I don't really know. And then, of course, it's always worth mentioning that one element of all this, how E3 is run by the ESA, which is a totally gross corporation that you don't want to be dealing with anyway. Let's not forget their most famous blunder, which they will never live down, when they doxed literally every single attendee one year. Every single one. All of their personal information, phone numbers, addresses, everything put out on the internet. So that was a thing that the ESA did. It's really just sad from a purely nostalgic perspective, you know? Like, I mean, it all goes without saying at this point. We've all been through this a lot of times, but like, I will say it again, it was just fun to have 1 week where all the biggest announcements of the whole entire year were right there in that 1 week. There simply were not other times of the year that were traditional for companies, or even just other venues and things for companies to reveal stuff. It was really just E3 for the most part. And like, just all of it condensed down into one. I mean, gosh, I feel like 1 or 2 of the years I was unemployed, and that is not good, but it was really, really fun just doing nothing but watching E3 coverage for a whole entire week. It was incredible. And you know, like, streaming wasn't always that big of a thing, and even when it was, it took me a few years before I realized that this was something that I wanted to be watching, and I'm really, really, really glad that I got in when I did, and I had at least a good few years of just enjoying the heck out of it. At least a couple years where it was like, okay, time to watch Microsoft, time to watch Sony, time to watch Nintendo, time to watch Ubisoft. Just, oh gosh, it was great. And I will miss that for sure, but what really, really makes me sad, what really genuinely makes me sad is that I never got to go. You know, E3 was always this mystical thing, this mystical wonderland I could hear about and I could read about, but I could never touch for myself. Before they opened it to the public, you had to be in. You had to be a part of the industry. You had to be an esteemed journalist or something. You had to have an invite. And it's a bummer because now I basically am at that. I never thought I would get to that point, but now I kind of am. I am, for all intents and purposes, a journalist. You know, I'm in the industry to at least enough of a degree to get maybe allowed into an event like that. But I got in just a little teeny tiny bit too late. And you know what? Like, it's funny. Like, for the most part, I'm just kind of whatever about it. But like, every once in a while, kind of rarely, but it happened like yesterday when I heard the news. Every once in a while, I'll think about it. I'll really think about what it means. What it means for the whole thing to be dead or you know, even just open to the public, just not the way it once was. And it will really genuinely hit me, like deep down in my gut, that I never got to go to E3. I never got to go to that magical wonderland. I never got to be part of that crazy buzz back when the whole entire year was condensed into that 1 week. There were no presentations outside of E3. It was all E3. That must have been incredible. That must have just been completely unreal. I never got to go. What I would give to have gone just one single time. But life is a series of meetings and partings. That is the way of it. Things change. They change, and that's really just as you get older, you start to realize that things change. And it's not even just that they change. It's not even just realizing that things change. It's that they don't ever change back. They don't ever change back. They change. And you can't stop it. You can't stop it. No matter how much you want to. So yeah, E3's dead. I'm sorry. I'm in my mid-30s. This is just kind of, this happens every once in a while. I'm gonna go lie down.